What's up, guys? Welcome into the second episode of the TDL podcast, as well as the first episode of our new divisional deep dive series. So I'll get into some of that in just a minute, explain how that's going to work. I did wanted to clarify something really quick. So the other day I did try to jump on. I sent a message out to the group, tried to jump on and do a little bit of a group podcast. Didn't work out. Nobody joined, and that's okay. I know it was a Friday evening, I think. It was Father's Day weekend. It wasn't a good time to do it. But going forward, that is how I probably will move from time to time. That's like I mentioned, I want to do this a little differently than the TFFL podcast. I want to do it virtual because there's, a few of us that live quite a bit further away in this league than others, and I do want to give everybody a chance to get on here. So sometimes I may reach out to you and try to set something up. Sometimes I may just be bored and have a couple free hours and want to jump on here and just see if anybody wants to jump on, without a real agenda of anything to talk about. Just, talk about life, talk about football in general, talk about this league, certain players, certain teams, try to make a trade, anything random kind of like that. So be on the lookout for some more of those. Like I said, if you have a computer, it works really well, but you can jump on Zoom with a phone. It works better if you have some sort of headphones. It doesn't have to be AirPods, just any kind of headphones that you can talk into. It will make it a little bit better because it's the one downside of Zoom is the sound quality doesn't come through as well, especially when there's multiple people on the call. So if you got headphones, it would be preferred. But if you don't have them, it's not like we're a big podcast that a lot of people are going to listen to. I mean, it's just for us. So whatever you got to work. So be on the lookout for that going forward. But like I said, this is the first of the divisional deep dives. So let me share my screen here. We are going to be starting with the Shula Division. So let me go back. Let's go to league. So the divisions, obviously we got the Shula Division, we've got the Hallis Division, and we have the Belichick Division. So kind of getting into why they're named that way. Trying to make this league unique and different. Like I've said, I know divisions usually have pretty generic names, odds and evens, north and south, east and west, stuff like that. I want to try to make this league as unique and fun as possible. So I've named each division after a legendary coach, and you can see their picture there as well. The idea is to try and, again, promote winning in this league and promote competition, because I know that sometimes it gets lost in translation a little bit with dynasty fantasy football. So naming the coach after a legendary division, or I'm sorry, naming the division after a legendary coach, offering a money bonus if you win the division. That's something new this year that we've not had in TFFL until recently. We didn't always have it. But I do want to try and spice it up just a little bit. So the Shula Division, before we get into the guys that make up the division, let's talk about Don Shula a little bit. Like I've said, naming it after a legendary coach. Want you to, hopefully, the goal is you feel honored to play in that division and you feel super honored to win it because it's named after a legendary coach. You get money for winning it, breeds competition. That's the idea. So the Shula Division, named after legendary Don Shula, both a player and a coach. So let's start with his playing career because I didn't know much about him as a player. I knew he played, but I didn't really know much. He played 7 seasons as a defensive back. He played for the Baltimore Colts, the Cleveland Browns, and then 1 season with the Washington Redskins at the very end of his career. He played 73 games. He had 21 interceptions and 4 fumble recoveries. So like I said, obviously he's a legendary coach. I knew he played. Wasn't quite sure how good of a player he was, but obviously it sounds like he was a pretty solid defensive back. As a coach, he won 347 games, which is the most all time. Won 2 Super Bowls and 6 appearances. 6 Super Bowl appearances was a record for a while. I know Belichick broke that. What do you go to? 9, I think. I'm not sure if there's anybody else who also broke that. But 6 Super Bowl appearances. He won 2 back to back, 72 and 73 with the Dolphins. 72 season, the Dolphins were the only team in history to go undefeated the entire way. So undefeated in the regular season, one out in the playoffs as well. The caveat is it's a 14 game season, but nonetheless, it's probably the best season in history. Legendary player, legendary coach, Don Shula. So making up the Don Shula division, we have Mr. Daniel Hall, Mr. Jamie Golden, Mr. Taylor Burrow, and Mr. Damon Sloan. So let's go and take a look. Can I move this? I can't. Okay. Let's go and take a look. Let's just kind of rattle off their teams a little bit, and then we're going to use Keep Trade Cuts power rankings and just kind of talk through what each guy has going on. So we'll start with Jamie, because that's the first name I see here. Big Game James, 2025. 5-man quarterback room: Stafford, Anthony Richardson, Russ, Darnold, and Rodgers. 1, 2, 3. 7-man running back room: Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, Ray Davis, Raheem Mostert, Kareem Hunt, Austin Eckler, Jalen Warren. 6-man receiver room: Chase, Amon-Ra, Mike Evans, D-Hop, Adam Thielen, Josh Palmer. 3 tight ends: Travis Kelce, Jonnu Smith, Noah Fant. We'll get into picks just a little bit later. But that's Jamie's roster. Moving over, we've got Dan, Jaden Daniels, who just acquired via trade, Bo Nix, and Dylan Gabriel. Saquon Barkley, Bijan. I think that's Bijan. Yeah, it's Bijan. Saquon Barkley, Bijan, Aaron Jones, Estime, Jalen Wright, Sampson, and also newly acquired Krosky Merritt. Wide receiver room, see, 1, 2, 3, 7. He's got Tyreek Hill, Terry McLaurin, Yoshavash, McMillan, Noel, Lane, and who's that? Deontay Johnson. Yep, Deontay Johnson. Tight ends got 4: Evan Ingram, Tucker Kraft, Ben Sinnott, and Mike Gesicki. And then we got Damon's roster: 3 quarterbacks: Dak, Baker, and Shador. Running backs: Breece Hall, ETN, Bucky Irving, Jaden Blue, Phil Maffa, Tony Pollard, Rico Dowdle. Holy crap, I didn't realize he had so many running backs. Whoops. Javonte Williams, Zamir White, Deuce Vaughn, and Kendre Miller. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11-man running back room. Wide receiver room, we got 6: Brandon Ayuk, George Pickens, Cooper Kupp, Alec Pierce, Dontavian Wicks, Josh Downs. And then tight end, the number 1 overall pick, Brock Bowers, as well as Cole Kmet. And then moving over to Taylor, 4 quarterbacks: Goff, Kyler, Deshaun, Daniel Jones. Running backs, he's got 7: Kamara, Demo, Neal, Gordon, Judkins, Brooks, and Spears. Wide receivers: JSN, Garrett Wilson, Higgins, Egbuka, Luther Burden, Horn, Smith, and Olavi. So that's 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8. And then a very strong tight end room, spearheaded by Trey McBride, Sam Laporta, and then Brenton Strange as well. So let's kind of jump in. Like I said, I want to take a look at, not that Keep Trade Cut. I know it's as a trade calculator, there's polarizing opinions on it. It is sourced by, players. So that's one, I would say one benefit of it is that it's, presumably active dynasty players. You get on, you vote, and that's kind of how the rankings go. So it's nice, but I know some people really, really use it as kind of the end all be all with trades. I don't think it's designed to be used that way. You can punch in your potential trade that you're trying to make, and it'll tell you which side's getting a better deal and by how much, or if it's an even deal, or who could be added or what could be added to the trade to make it even. I do use it. I use it just kind of generally to gauge, am I getting fleeced? Am I fleecing this guy? Is it relatively fair? That's kind of the way I use it. I'm not getting on there saying, well, I lose this trade on Keep Trade Cut by 700 points, so I'm not going to make the trade. You know what I mean? You can't be like that. Players in our league have different valuations of players. The league set up a little bit differently. Um, so the general kind of way, I know I'm kind of rambling here, but the general way that I think of it is if I am giving up the best player in the trade, especially in this league, if it's like a quarterback or a tight end, if I'm losing the best player in the trade, then I want to win the trade. I'm not looking to give up, a stud. Like for me, my quarterback Justin Herbert. I'm not looking to ship off Justin Herbert to break even. That makes sense. If I'm losing a big franchise piece, then I want to win the trade back, if that makes sense. Whereas vice versa, let's say I went and I tried to trade for a top quarterback, Josh Allen, Lamar, Jaden Daniels, Jalen Hurts, whoever, I have to be prepared to lose that trade. I can't just piece together, nonsense that makes it, oh, look, it's an even trade if you punch it in. Well, I mean, it's like 7 things to make it even. And, most of them are things I can't use. Like if I have to go trade for the best player in the deal, I have to be willing to quote unquote lose the trade to make that happen. I know I'm going on like a weird trade rant here, but I did just kind of want to talk about keep trade cut because I know some of us use it. I just kind of wanted to offer my experience on there. But looking at this, I just punched the league back in right before I started this podcast. So this is, well, actually, it says it's not fully synced. So let's hit resync league. Okay, I'm not sure if that changed anything or not, but it's fully synced now. So out of the Shula division, Taylor, that's prestige worldwide. He's viewed by Keep Trade Cut as the best team, not only in the division but in the league as well. So he's got they've ranked him tenth best quarterback room, which I don't know. Goff, Kyler Murray. I guess it's punishing Taylor for the depth a little bit, just because Daniel Jones is kind of in a camp battle. Deshaun Watson's not going to play this year or possibly ever. But Goff and Kyler Murray are two really strong starting quarterbacks in my opinion. But I guess they're punishing Taylor for his depth a little bit. Running back room, they're ranking as eighth best in the league. Wide receiver room fourth, tight end first, and draft picks number three. And I did want to scroll down and look at Taylor's draft picks. Really, I mean, maybe I'm dumb, but I don't see how he would be anything but first. He owns two first round picks this year, one of which belongs to Bo, which many would probably project to be a pretty decent pick. He owns three first rounders next year. One of them is his own, one is Damon's, one is Bo's. And then he owns two first round picks in 2028, again, one of which is Bo. So a lot of first round picks, a lot of talent, obviously super strong tight end and wide receiver room. So Taylor, in my opinion, and seemingly in Keep Trade Cut's opinion, is kind of set up in a way where you want to be in Dynasty, where especially a super flex as well as we go tiered PPR. So running backs get a half point per catch, receivers get a full, tight ends get 1.5. Progressing from eighth best running backs to fourth best receivers to number one tight ends. For the PPR format, that is set up extremely well for the league. Two strong starting quarterbacks and a bunch of pieces to trade if he needs to. So I think I would agree with with that opinion there, at least as it pertains to the Shula division. Next on here, we've got That's What She Said, which is Jamie. Dan, Jamie, Taylor, Damon. Yes, that's right. So they're giving him the seventh best team in the league, second best team in the division, rating his quarterback room 12. I was kind of looking at this earlier, and I know Jamie kind of went with obviously a much later quarterback approach in this draft than a lot of others. But noticed right after the draft, it's the first thing he actually said. We texted that night after the draft ended. And I said, how do you feel? And he said, I kind of messed up on my quarterback strategy and I'm going to have to make some moves there. And to Jamie's credit, he's come and traded for Russell Wilson from me. And then he also traded for Matthew Stafford, I believe, from Daniel as well. So you look at it, is it the best quarterback room for dynasty fantasy football where you've got young studs that run and are going to be presumably in a good offense for a long time? No. But starting quarterback in Sam Darnold, starting quarterback in Matthew Stafford, starting quarterback in Aaron Rodgers, at least for this year, starting quarterback in Russell Wilson, at least at the start of this year. I think they're hopeful he plays the entire year. I think he's going to start week one. If they don't have much success, do they move to a younger option? Obviously they have that ability, but and then same with Anthony Richardson. I know we were kind of talking about Daniel Jones with Taylor earlier. And on the flip side, Anthony Richardson's in that quarterback battle as well. With Richardson and Daniel Jones, I think it would be a fair bet that they both start at least one game this year. Whoever wins the job, they're two guys that have been hurt a little bit. They're two guys that have struggled, turned the ball over, in their career. So I think it's feasible that Anthony Richardson, for Jamie's sake, at least starts a game this year. So, and very young. He's a guy that could pan out going forward. Only 23 years old, obviously. So, probably accurate that they've given him the worst quarterback room just because of the dynasty format. But I think for this year specifically, I think it will be okay. Given Jamie the 10th best running back room, which is kind of surprising because it's spearheaded by Derrick Henry and Josh Jacobs, two guys coming off of extremely strong seasons last year, two guys that have had great careers overall. And in my opinion, two guys that are going to be on two of the best offenses in the league this year. Again, I think the age is probably what's punishing the ranking, with Derrick Henry being 31 and Josh Jacobs being 27, which isn't that old, but I know they kind of say 27, 28 for running backs is where you start to see some drop off. But man, they were top 5 running backs last year. I think Derrick Henry was third in half PPR. Josh Jacobs was fifth. They're guys that found the end zone a ton. Like I said, I mean, barring like injury or something like that, I don't see either of them just falling off the cliff this year. And I don't know. I don't agree with the number 10 ranking. Jaylen Warren could potentially be the starter in Pittsburgh. I think he's probably, if you had to make a conservative bet, you'd probably bet that he has at least a similar workload to what he's had in the past, being on the field, seeing a lot of targets. But you would think that even though they got Caleb Johnson, Najee Harris is he was a workhorse back for them. He's very reliable, somebody that they trusted quite a bit to handle the ball a lot. So I think, you could expect Jaylen Warren to be the starting running back, but, conservative estimate is his role goes up a little bit from what it was. And Rodgers likes to throw to the running back. So, that's going to be a fine player. For now, he's 26. And then you got Austin Eckler, Kareem Hunt, Mostert, some older guys, especially Eckler and maybe Kareem Hunt should see some playing time this year. I'm not really sure how much Mostert will see. Ray Davis, looked really good in a few games in Buffalo. There's some weird stuff going on with James Cook right now. So, maybe he has more of a role than what's currently forecasted. Wide receiver room, where are we at here? Number 3 in the league, obviously very strong, spearheaded by Chase and Amon-Ra. Mike Evans should be a really strong option for this year. Then you got some older guys, D-Hop and Adam Thielen, who have still looked strong, especially Adam Thielen last year, or was that the year before? No, yeah, that was down the stretch where he had you guys can see it here. He scored 9, 25, 23, 10, 16, 31, and 9 at the end of the year. 34 years old, not a great asset for Dynasty, but seems like a guy you'd probably be able to plug and play this year. And then Josh Palmer, who's with Buffalo now, signed a pretty decent deal. He's a solid wide receiver in the league. Is he going to break the game for fantasy football? Probably not, but he's a decent option. And then tight end room, they're giving Jamie the worst tight end room. Are they? Am I reading that right? No, I was looking at Dan. I'm sorry. No, that's right. 12th tight end room. Man, I don't agree with that at all. Travis Kelce, yes, he's older. He's 35 years old. He's coming off his worst season. since the first 2 years of his career. But his worst season as a tight end, six finish, 133 targets, 97 catches, 800 yards, three touchdowns. Kelsey's aging. They don't really funnel the offense through him like they used to. But, he's a guy it could be his last year. I know he's in probably the last year or two of his career. But him and Mahomes and Andy Reid, they have so much chemistry together. They're such a well-oiled machine. I expect Travis Kelsey to score more touchdowns. Maybe he sees less targets, and continues to be a little bit inefficient with doing stuff with his targets and his catches, but I think he'll get in the end zone more, and he'll be fine. Jonnu Smith coming off a great season, tight end four finish, possibly in some contract disputes slash trade talks. I'm not really sure, but I think he will play for Miami this year, and I think they'll throw him the ball a lot. I mean, they're not a team that runs the ball very well. Tyreek Hill's coming off a really bad year. Still, I mean, tried to request a trade, and now they're like, oh, he's not going to catch passes till August, but he might still play here. You know what I mean? Jalen Waddle's solid, but injury prone. Devon Achane, they throw it to a lot, but he could get banged up. So Jonnu, I think, is going to have just a fine year. He's 29. That's not super old for a tight end, especially a guy who, in my opinion, it's not like he's been ran into the ground over his career. I mean, this was the best year of his career. I mean, obviously, it was a career year, and that's why he wants paid. So, a very solid option for this year, and I think a decent option going forward. Noah Fant, I think Jamie just picked him up off the waivers recently. He's the starting tight end. He didn't pan out as a round one pick, obviously for Denver, as he was hoped to be. And I know they just took Arroyo in the second it says it here, the second round. Again, that's a starting tight end, or at least a guy that's going to play pretty significant amount of time and still relatively young. So a decent option for Dynasty. And then Jamie's picks. What do we got? They give him the number one collection of picks in the league. Very interesting. Let's dive into that. He's got 4 picks this year, a 1, a 2, and 2 threes. Next year, he's got a 4 seconds and a third. Again, one of those belongs to Bo, which could be an early one. And then 28, he's got his normal lineup of picks. So, I would classify Taylor's picks as better than Jamie's, but Jamie's not really missing anything. And like I said, has a ton of draft capital in 2027. So I think Jamie, I think Taylor, like I said, is obviously set up to win now and later both. Jamie's roster construction, I would say, is more structured to win now, obviously with some aging players, especially at the quarterback and running back position, but a lot of draft capital as well, where I don't feel like he's like in, championship or bust mode. I think will likely have a strong season, and probably be in contention, but it's not like he has to win it this year or it all falls apart. He's got plenty of draft capital, plenty of foundational pieces in this roster as well. Jamar Chase and Amon-Ra St. Brown, obviously, and a lot of draft capital to play with. So another really strong team, I would say. Moving down to the number 9 ranked team, Mr. Daniel Hall. He's ranked number 9, but he is given by Keep Trade Cut the number 1 quarterback room, and that's obviously because of the recent trade that he made for his, probably his favorite player at the moment. I would take a guess. Jaden Daniels, the savior of the Washington franchise, and now hopefully the savior of Team D Hall 87. Get a better name than that. Like I said, let's have some realistic, legit franchise names that you stick with forever. I like Taylor's. It doesn't show them on here, but Prestige Worldwide. Let's go back here. Champ Shit Only. I use that everywhere. CSO. Shout out Tony Ferguson. I'm not going to read that one on camera. I really like The Process. I like MAGA Machine. Kick-Ass Inc. is probably the coolest franchise name I've ever seen in my life. So get a better team name, Dan. Maybe you'd be ranked a little bit higher. But yeah, like I said, Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix, that's 2 guys that, going into their second year, both had really strong rookie seasons. and project to be good options in Dynasty because they're young, they use their legs, they should be solid now, they should be solid later. Dylan Gabriel, not sure what's going to happen with him. He's got a chance to win that job in Cleveland at some point throughout this year. So a pretty good depth piece there as well. Second best running back room, I would assume, due to his running back start in the draft, or I guess his shadow drafters running back start. Saquon and Bijan. Obviously, Saquon's on the Madden cover this year. He's coming off an absolutely phenomenal season. Running back one, 2,000 yards, 13 touchdowns, another 278 and two through the air. The only concern with him would be workload in his career. Obviously, coming off a 300 carry season is always kind of tough. Actually, up near pretty close to what do we got? Yeah, 375 touches plus. He's 28. He's getting a little older, but 28. He's on a great offense. He's behind a great offensive line. Um, probably not expecting a drop off from him anytime soon. He's had injuries in his career, but that's 3 straight years that he's played. And made it through most or all of the year. And so obviously a great first round pick there, or second. Was it a second round pick? I can't remember. I think so. Bijan Robinson, drafted as, I believe, I'd have to go back. I think he was the first round pick. I believe he was the running back one taken in the draft, only 23 years old. Had a very strong first 2 years of his career. Running back 9 as a rookie, improved to running back 4 this past year. Seems like they've got something with Michael Penix. Their offense started to click a little bit. So great option there. A veteran option as well, Aaron Jones. 30 years old, but he's a plug-in. He's going to be just fine. He's coming off a running back 16 finish there in Minnesota, his first year in Minnesota. Again, should be on a good offense, an offense that'll like to throw the ball a lot. I know they got JJ, or McCarthy, but they have Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Hawkinson back healthy. Should be able to hurt you in a lot of ways. So good player there. And then some other depth pieces. Sampson, has a chance to, in my opinion, seize the backfield. Probably not seize it, but seize a role in the backfield, I guess would be a better term since they also drafted Judkins. Let's see, we got Krosky Merritt, who they're saying a lot of good things about. Jalen Wright, who looks solid. Estime, who I think the J.K. Dobbins signing says more about him than it does about R.J. Harvey. But a player that'll probably get some run throughout the year as well. So I think very, very justified as a top 2 running back room in the league. Where Keep Trade Cut doesn't love him is the receiver room. Tyreek, I talked about him already a little bit earlier. He's getting older. He struggled last year. There's some questions regarding his future or even his present in Miami. Terry McLaurin coming off a super strong season, demanding a contract. Hopefully they get that figured out. Scored a bunch of touchdowns, has a great connection, provides a really good stack with Jaden Daniels. And then, some younger options as well with McMillan, Yoshavash, Noel, Lane, and then Deontay Johnson, who's such an enigma. I still think he's a good player, but I don't know. We'll see. So probably rightfully, I don't know about 12, but a bottom 2 or 3 receiver room overall, just within the context of dynasty. Fourth tight end room, that's solid. Evan Ingram just signed with Denver. Tucker Kraft, obviously a really good option. Gesicki, who gets some run still, and then Ben Sinnott, who's a good young option. And, if he can get healthy, maybe he will be something and provide a little triple stack there in Washington for Dan. Draft pick situation. What are we looking at here? They get more Wolves picks. That's probably because he, was involved in a 3-team trade. Getting his boy Jaden Daniels. I assume that's why he's got a 1 and a 3 this year. No, I'm sorry, a 1. Yeah, 1 and a 3 this year, only a 3 next year. That's where he's hurting. 28, he's fully loaded. So kind of being punished for not having a 2 this year or a 1 or 2 next year. But again, a talented roster, a good mixture of vets and youth, and enough picks, I still think, to play with. So Last but not least, Kick-Ass Inc. Keep Trade Cut doesn't love Damon's team. They're ranking him as 12th overall. 11th best quarterback room with Dak, Baker, and Shador. I would say I very strongly disagree with that. I think he got Dak for really good value in this draft. He is 31 years old. That used to be pretty old for a quarterback. It's not anymore. Especially guys like Dak who don't move a ton. I know Dak can move and hopefully will move a little bit more this year than he has in years past. But man, he's got CeeDee Lamb, he's got George Pickens, Jake Ferguson. Their running back room is kind of ugly. I know Schottenheimer will want to run the ball, and I'm sure they will, but I think Dak's a candidate to lead the league in yards this year, and I don't think that would even be a stretch to say. So a very strong quarterback in Dak Prescott. Baker Mayfield, fairly similar situation to Dak, similar age. He's 30. Seemed like he was out of the league. He's really rejuvenated his career these past 2 years in Tampa. 4,500 yards, 41 touchdowns last year. Possibly an unsustainable amount of touchdowns. I know touchdowns are kind of sticky. We'll see. But again, a guy that throws the ball very well, has solid options to throw it to with Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Egbuka, who they just drafted, and then McMillan, who looks strong. They got some tight ends, and obviously they like to throw it to both running backs. So I think Dak and Baker, I'd be without paying a premium for one of the big name quarterbacks in round one. In my opinion, that's about as too good a quarterbacks as you can put together without doing that. And then Shador Sanders, that's who I expect to win the job in Cleveland. I know that people like to poke fun at him, but I think he didn't deserve to go in the fifth round. But we'll see. I mean, not that it's like glorious to be Cleveland's quarterback, but I think he'll have three starting quarterbacks by the middle of the year, in my opinion. So I very much disagree with that 11 ranking. That's crap. Running back room, they've got him third, maybe just because of sheer volume, because he's got like 15 running backs. But obviously, Brees Hall, Bucky Irving, that's a fantastic 1-2 punch. Um, you know, Dan's probably the only other guy that's got a 1-2 punch that's better than that one. Both young, both solid. Bucky should be on a really good offense. Brees, we'll see. But Brees catches enough passes that he's fine. But he needs to get in a better offense where he can score more touchdowns. Travis Etienne, man, if this was 1 year ago, he would have by far the best running back room in the league. Obviously, a rough year for Etienne. Struggled. He played banged up, I think, pretty much the whole year. Got kind of phased out. Tank Bigsby, um, you know, looked better than him at a lot of times. They drafted this Bashal Tootin guy. Etienne, I think he returns to form somewhat this year. I don't know that we'll ever see him back at 2022, 2023 levels, but he's a better player than that. And he's still so young and does catch the ball well. I think he's going to be fine. So I think that's a good running back room. Tony Pollard, belongs in that conversation as well. Very solid. And then he pretty much has the whole Dallas backfield, Deuce Vaughn, uh, Javonte Williams, Rico Dowdle, Jaden Blue, and Phil Maffa. So, I mean, whoever emerges out of that, Damon's going to have him. And who did I miss? Zamir White, Kendre Miller as well. So pretty good running back room overall, I would say. And I think it's rightfully rated as top three. Wide receiver room, they don't love. Let's dive into that. Who do we got? Brandon Ayuk, George Pickens, Cooper Kupp, Alec Pierce, Wicks, and Downs. It's tough. Pickens is going to have a strong year, but he is a 2 now instead of a 1. I think it's going to work out better for him. And obviously provides a good stack with Dak Prescott. Brandon Ayuk, that is a really good pick. It just may not materialize this year with him coming back from injury, but I think he will be okay as long as he recovers fully. Probably a guy that picks it up in the back half of the season and then goes into next year, hopefully 100% healthy, ready to go. Cooper Kupp, yeah, I mean, we all know Cooper Kupp. He has a chance. Oh shit, he has a chance to, obviously. I mean, he could be a top 5 receiver, top 10 receiver, and I don't think anybody would bat an eye. But he's aging. He's getting banged up a little bit. He's going away from Stafford and McVay. So rightful to have some concerns about him, but I think should be a solid option with full PPR in the 2025 season for Damon. Alec Pierce, Dontavian Wicks, Josh Downs is a really strong player. A lot of people think he's probably the one for Indianapolis now. Very young, so that's a good piece. Um, do I agree again that he's bottom two? No. Bottom three or four, maybe, but I think he's fine. And then the tight end room is ranked second. Obviously, took Brock Bowers with the number one overall pick, looking to cash in on that 1.5 points per reception. Brock Bowers off to a historically great start. And then Cole Kmet, another starter as well. Lastly, looking at his draft picks, they've got him ninth. That's because Taylor stole that draft pick from him that he didn't know that he was trading. Taylor, that dirty bastard. But he's got a 1, 2 twos, and a 3 this year. He's got a 2 and a 3 next year, and a full boat for 28. So right in the mix again. I think he's got veterans. I think he's got some youth. He's got some franchise cornerstone pieces, in my opinion, and he's got draft capital to play with. So that's pretty much all you can ask for in Dynasty. So I'll quit rambling, but I am going to post a poll in the league chat. So I will put it in there. Please listen to this first, is what I will say, and then go vote. But I will have everybody go and vote for who they think will win the Shula Division this year, whether it will be Taylor, whether it will be Damon, whether it will be Jamie or Dan. Let me know if you guys like this or if you hated it, if it was super boring. Again, I want to have people on here more often. Probably these division deep dives I'll keep doing on my own because we got 2 more to do. But if you ever want, just shoot me a text. Say, hey, you want to jump on podcast for 30 minutes this evening, an hour, whatever. Sounds good. I'll do it anytime. So appreciate y'all listening. We'll see you next time. And yeah, see ya.